Welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat Deshpande. I can't wait to chat with you. So here's something a lot of women don't know about the postpartum experience, especially after a high-risk pregnancy, after a difficult delivery, after being in the NICU for a long time. This is something I didn't know either until I personally experienced it. And that is that our bodies, when we're going through so much stress with a high-risk pregnancy, bed rest, prematurity, pregnancy complications, all of this, it actually creates the stage and sets the stage for health problems postpartum. I know. Can you believe it? After everything you're already going through, there's that on top of it. And I'm telling you this, not to scare you, but because I wish I'd known. Because I can't tell you how many women I have spoken with who have had a high-risk pregnancy, who are on bed rest, who ended up delivering preterm and spent a good amount of time in the NICU, we're talking weeks, if not months, and developed an autoimmune disease after baby came home. It is way more than just anecdotal. Now, I haven't done the research, I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to look into it yet, but from what I know about stress, and if you've read Pregnancy Brain, you know where I'm going with this, it changes your body chemistry and it sets the stage for health complications. And it's infuriating. I know I was so angry when I developed my health complication postpartum because I was like, seriously? You don't think I've been through enough? And all the women that I talk to feel the same way because now what we're dealing with is parenting, which is hard on its own. And if you are a preemie parent, then you've got all the preemie stuff put on top of that. And then you add your own health issues on top of that. And that's all happening with this backdrop of the trauma that you have been through with the high-risk pregnancy, prematurity, and everything else that you've been through, infertility, if that's there too. And all that trauma is still there too. It's insane. It's completely insane. And yet, what are you going to do? Pause on parenting? Tell your child to hold on, let me figure this out? I wish we could do that. There are moments when I wish there was a remote for life. Just like pause. Do you guys ever watch that show? I haven't thought of this in years. It just came up. I think it's called Out of This World, where this girl would like point her fingers and touch them together and then life would just stop. That'd be nice, right? But we can't do that. At least not yet. Nobody's figured out how to do that yet. So until then, let's talk about how do you actually parent? How do you get through life as a parent when you've got a little human that's depending on you while you have a chronic illness or 2 or 5 or whatever it is that you're dealing with. And that's why I'm super excited about today's episode because Jen Hardy is here to talk to us about exactly that. Jen is an avid collector of eclectic diseases and mystifier of physicians, which I think should actually be a title because yes, I can totally relate and I'm loving that she's here. She's an author, podcast host, and speaker. She is married to her knight in shining armor and is mom to 7 children. She's spent over 2 decades perfecting the art of managing a home when a parent has chronic illness and enjoys what she's learned with the world. Welcome, Jen. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here, Parijat. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you do for people like us, families like us, and the message that you share. It is absolutely invaluable. I can't tell you how much we need this. So thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, you're welcome. You are welcome.
So let's just kind of start at the beginning. How long have you been parenting with a chronic illness?
So we're still trying to figure out all the details. So because as a child, I was really tired all the time. And people used to say I was lazy, but I didn't feel lazy. When I played sports, I had to sit out a lot. And, who really wants to do that when you're a kid, right? And on the weekends, I was in bed a lot. But the doctors just said, she's fine. She just doesn't want to do things. So fast forward to when I was about 30. Things have been rough. I had been having all this random pain and all these things, but the doctors kept saying that I was fine. And so I kept thinking, well, maybe it's in my head, but if it's in my head, can you just give me a pill to fix this? Because I don't want to feel like this. And then I got pregnant with my fourth child. So he just turned 20. So it was about 20 years ago. And that was a point when I started being able to not get off the couch. I was in so much pain and I was so exhausted that I couldn't move. And because the doctors kept saying there was nothing wrong with me, unfortunately, the people close to me that could have been helping me believed the doctors, which left me to...
That is infuriating.
It was very infuriating. Those people are no longer the closest people because, yes, it was a trust and belief issue. And it was really frustrating because I had no one to turn to. I had all these random symptoms of just being tired and achy. I had been in a couple of car accidents, but that didn't explain the severity of what was happening. And after my son was born, I had been on bed rest for my second, third, and fourth child. So I know what that's like. None of them were preterm though, but that was tough being in bed, forced bed rest. And then I couldn't really do a whole lot.
Absolutely. And then having children at home on top of that.
Exactly. So I had these three kids and I had no idea what to do. What do you do with these kids when you can't get off the couch? Right. And I thought no one around me could understand. And I thought there was no other women that were going through the same thing as me, because who wants to admit that we're not supermom? Right? Because we're all supposed to do it all.
Exactly. That is the thing. That's the thing. Like so many of us are going through this, and yet we feel so alone in it.
Exactly. Because who wants to say, I can't get up to feed my kids right. I'm barely brushing my hair to get out the door to take them to school, let alone getting a shower. Nobody wants to admit that. No. So we run around and we look like everything's perfect on the outside. And then we just kind of melt.
And it's so not.
Yeah, exactly. When we get home. Yeah. And so there was one instance when my son was about 6 months old, because he was sitting up and he fell over and he got hurt. And he was literally 10 feet from me on the couch, but I couldn't get him and I couldn't console him because I couldn't move enough to even get to him to hold him. And I remember my older daughter, she was 9 at the time. She had to pick him up and bring him to me. That was probably one of the lowest points in my entire life. In fact, it's making me tear up right now because what mom wants to know, you're watching your child suffer and you can't help. Right.
You can't help.
And so, I went through off and on, and then I seemed to get better. I went through a divorce and everything seemed to be better. And I thought, well, then maybe it was in my head, but then I remarried a year and a half later, and my husband was on his way to Iraq. And so we thought, we want to have another baby. And I was 40 and time was running out. So I got pregnant and he left for Iraq, which is not the greatest plan if you have the choice. And I got put back on bed rest again. And then all those health issues seemed to come back. And they came back even stronger than they had been before.
Were they tied to pregnancy? Did they figure out that it was related to something like that?
Well, no. So I think that just because of what's happening with my body, that the doctors had found, but nobody mentioned it to me, which was they had done a scan 7 years before I had her, I think. And it showed that most of the muscles on the outside of my spine and my lower back had atrophied and been replaced by fat. So there was no bringing them back.
Oh my goodness. And no one told you?
No one told me. And no one did anything about it. They just completely ignored it. So I had my daughter, and then I could have another baby when he got back because I had a son. So at 43, I had a high risk pregnancy, and I was again in bed most of the time because I had preterm labor, and it was my 6th baby. So there was a lot happening with my body and my age, and it was a lot. And after I had him, the year after, I fell down the stairs 3 times in a month. And my sister-in-law was there and she said, you really have to go get checked out. That's not normal and you're probably hurt. So I had a scan and it said, oh yeah, there's muscle atrophy just like before. And then the doctor saw it.
So the muscles had atrophied before and then they came back?
No, they didn't come back. But when they did the scan, they said, oh yes, you have this atrophy just like you did before. But now it's worse. And through a series of 3 years going back and forth. I'm on my 10th neurologist now. We've discovered that I had been misdiagnosed in 2014, which is a story in its own. And so it put me in the hospital 6 different week-long stays in 1 year in 2014. And that's what started what I'm doing now, because I had a 2 and a 4-year-old and 4 teenagers at home. And that is a crazy time to not be able to get out of bed. So for 4 months, I couldn't go up the stairs to my kitchen. We had converted my garage into a master suite. So I couldn't go anywhere else in my house. I couldn't go to my car. My husband, I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't drive. I couldn't do anything for a solid 4 months. And I kept looking online. How can I be a parent when I can't get off the couch? How can I be a parent when I can't get out of bed? Right?
Absolutely.
My ideas of parenting, I'm a homeschool mom and I was always very active and leading their groups. And now I'm doing nothing at all. And I could find some blogs and some things. Now I'm finding now that there were more, but I just couldn't, they weren't easy to search. And so a lot of it was people complaining, and I get the complaining because we all have to let it out.
Sure. And especially for something that not a lot of people understand.
Exactly.
There's certainly a place for, I just need to talk about how hard this is.
Exactly. And I just want to share it. But at the same time, what I needed was positivity. And I needed somebody to grab my hand and say, you're not alone and you can get through this. And no one was saying that to me. And so went through that for about a year. And then my husband said, it's not out there and it needs to exist. You are the person to create it.
That is so true. And he is absolutely right, which is, I'm so glad that our paths crossed and you do what you do because of exactly that the message is not there, that yes, I understand how hard it is and you will be okay because I know how to help you.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So you've been doing this a long time. You've been parenting with a chronic illness, whether you knew it or not. You've been doing this for a long time.
Right. It's been at least 20 years. And so then I feel like I'm in a unique position because I've raised one set of children that range right now between 20 and 28. And so I have 4 of mine and a stepdaughter there. But I also have younger children because parenting is completely different than it was when I had my older kids. So if I was a grandparent telling young moms, do this and do that, and this is how you can do things, I think it wouldn't be as easy to receive because things are just so different. But I'm going through it now.
Yeah.
So I can say, this is what I did that did not work, or this is what I did that did work. And this is how we can adapt it to parenting now.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. So if you could think back over these last 20 years, because those of, our listeners here, there's a lot of variety in the types of chronic illnesses that are here. We've got a lot of women with endometriosis who can probably really closely relate to what it's like to not be able to get out of bed because of pain. We've got a lot of women with chronic pain issues. We've got a lot of women with autoimmune diseases. So a lot of different types. And so those of you that are listening, even if you don't have the exact same type of chronic illness as Jen does, I think a lot of this is going to resonate anyway. So think about how this comes up for you in your life as we talk through this. But Jen, as you think back to the last 20 years of doing this, if you could identify the number one biggest challenge of parenting with a chronic illness, what would you say it is?
Choosing my attitude.
Ooh,
so it's a tough one because I was raised with a lot of negativity and sarcasm, and that is what used to instantly pop into my head. And it does sometimes, I'm not going to lie. But when I choose to have a positive attitude and I choose to wake up and instead of thinking, oh my goodness, I'm in so much pain, how am I going to make it today? I think I woke up today and I'm breathing today. So this is a good start, right? And I choose to move forward instead of wallowing in self-pity, which is very tempting, honestly.
Yes, it's hard to do. It's hard to resist that some days.
Exactly. And I think, as a parent, when I was very negative and very sad and very, I went through a period of mourning my health for a couple of years. It was really hard. Once I could let myself get through that and realize my life can be good. And in fact, I have to tell your listeners, right now, I'm only out of bed 4 to 8 hours a day, depending on the day. But I am living the best life I've ever lived, even though I'm in bed that much.
What do you think contributed to that? Well, how does that happen?
A lot of it's attitude and making choices that make me happy. So for a long time, my thing was, I'm just serving everyone else and I want to make everyone else happy. I want to buy the foods that they like. My needs always came last. And
Right.
yes, I want to take care of my kids. And yes, I want them to feel special. But if I'm not giving myself pleasant things and making myself feel good sometimes, I'm not helping anybody else because it just wears you down. And so now when I go to the grocery store, I'll do silly things like pick up a little something that makes me feel good. Or if I'm buying games for the kids so we can play something while I'm laying in bed, I'll pick something that I want to play because they don't know. They're new games, right? So why am I not choosing
Right.
things that I want to play with them? And I think parents just don't think that.
No, we totally don't. So many of us don't do that. I know I was fully guilty of that. I still am. Who am I kidding, right? It's all about other people. Let me take care of them. Let me do what they want. And it just doesn't, it's not even at least for me, it's not even an active, oh, I'm not going to do what I want to do. It just doesn't even cross my mind sometimes. It's not even an option. Like, I'm not going to go to the moon, so it's not on my list of things to do. Just like that. And you're so right. And especially when you have a chronic illness, taking care of yourself is extremely important because your cup is already running low. And so you have to be very mindful of refilling it so you're able to take care of the loved ones that are in your life.
Exactly. And things that seem, when someone else says it, it seems obvious, but when you're knee deep in the pit of dealing with all of this, sometimes it's hard to see the simple solutions. For instance, a lot of us are on a budget because if you have a chronic illness, a lot of times you can't have a full-time job. I could never get up at 8:00 every morning and go to a job. It just isn't going to work for me. And so a lot of people that are struggling with finances will do things for their children at the expense of their own health. For instance, if there's something that would make you feel better for $100 a month, but it would give you such a better quality of life. You won't spend that $100 on you, but you'll put your kid in a gymnastics class once a week for $100.
Right. Oh my God. Isn't that true? Just let that sink in. How many of you listeners are nodding furiously right now? Because I totally am. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah. And for 26 years, I didn't even think about me. That was the thing. I didn't miss not doing things for me. I didn't think about it. It wasn't even in my head. But as I've become less well, I've realized that if I don't do things for me and I don't give myself little treats, like, if you tell your kids, if you have a really good day, we're going to go get an ice cream, or, we're going to go you're going to get this toy if you do X amount of things or whatever. Well, when I do those things for myself, it sounds really silly, but it motivates me to work harder to get towards my goal. And my goal may be that if I get up on time and get moving, even if I don't feel like it, then I get to, whatever, take a nice long hot bath and ask my husband to take the kids. Cause that's another thing, is a lot of times we feel guilty because our partners are already taking over more responsibility than any of us thought that they would have to. And I know for me, it makes me feel very guilty because my husband signed up to be my husband, in all the vows, but we didn't really think sickness and health was going to hit when we had young kids at home.
Absolutely, especially so early. I think that's really a big point that I can really relate to. And I think a lot of our listeners too is, at some point in your life, one of you is going to get sick, but you think it's going to be when you're like 85.
Exactly.
And not 20s and 30s. And when that happens, there's a tremendous amount of loss in what you expected your life to be. And there needs to be time and space for mourning that for both of you, because this is a life neither one of you had signed up for.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of us too, and for me, I didn't realize how much my children and my husband were grieving my illness while I was grieving it. And I didn't have patience for that.
Yes.
But it's very important to understand. And one of my older daughters told me, and this is key for you to understand, or for your audience, is that my older kids were really ignoring me being sick and not helping me at all as much as I thought that they would actively pitch in, because they can see I'm sick. Why are they not just helping me? And my older daughter sat down and we were sobbing, talking one day, and she's in her 20s now. And she said, we worried every day that you were going to die. The only way we could cope is to
Oh my
ignore it.
goodness.
It wasn't that we didn't care. It was
Yeah.
that we cared so much, we
So
had to block it
much.
off. And so that's something to know if you've got kids, especially, a little bit older, if they're acting funny, it isn't because they don't care and they're ignoring you. It's because they do care, and it's hard. It's hard for them to watch. And
It's hard for them to
I didn't
watch.
have the patience for that because I didn't understand.
Right. And you're going through your own thing of dealing with your symptoms and the fact that you're feeling like you're letting everyone else down around you, and you've got it's a lot that you're carrying just for yourself, and then to carry other people's emotions on top of that is really hard.
It is.
I know my kiddos, he's seen me be sick, and sick isn't the right word. I mean, I have chronic pain and I've got the autoimmune disease that came up postpartum as well. And he's seen me be down a lot more than I wished he'd been able to see me or had to see me at such a young age. And it's hard, especially when they're little, because they know something's wrong with mom or dad, but they don't know what. And they catastrophize also because they get scared. Something like, why are you not doing everything you normally do? Why are you just lying in bed? That's not normal. But they don't understand what's happening. And so the fact that you're saying, when they act differently, I totally can relate because I've seen my son do it. And I'm curious what your advice is for our listeners on how to talk to young children about what a chronic illness is and how to help out and how to just take the edge off from it being so scary for them.
Well, that's funny because that would be the second point of advice that I would give, is to have an open dialogue, which includes two parts. So the first part is explaining to them. And then the second part is involving whoever is working with you, whether it's a partner or parents or anybody, on expectation. So the first part, I know I've talked to several women with cancer, and the ones who do not tell their children exactly what's going on, those are the ones whose kids go to school or preschool or whatever, and they say the word cancer and everyone's like, oh, cancer means someone's going to die. But it does not mean someone's going to die. And so if you don't tell them, I have this kind of cancer and this is what I'm doing. And obviously you need to tailor it to their age, right? But this is what I'm doing. And mommy is going to fight this disease as hard as I can. And while I'm doing this, I may be sick, or this treatment may make me feel this way. Or, if it's an autoimmune disease, this is the name of the disease. This is how it makes me feel. This is why, some days I can't get out of bed, or some days I can't eat a lot, or some days I can't take you to the park and run around like I'd like to. Explain it all as much as you can. But then once you're done explaining that day, you don't have to talk about it all the time because that stresses them out. So so talk about it. And if they have questions, answer their questions, because when they see you act afraid to talk about it, they think it's scary. And then they, like you were saying, they catastrophize and they think, oh my gosh, this is it. What am I going to do without mom? Right. And that's, in most situations, that's not at all what they need to be thinking. So
right. And in most situations, it's not even the reality.
Exactly.
We're not even that close to having that discussion, but that's what's happening in their heads. And so now you're reacting to different realities.
Exactly. And then the second thing would be to, discuss it every once in a while, but not all the time. They don't need to hear about it all the time, and trying not to complain in front of them as much as you can, oh, this hurts. Oh, making those sounds when you get up and all that. And believe me, it's very hard for me too, but they know, and they don't need to hear any more of that. And then the second thing is the expectation. So sitting down with them and saying, since I don't have this energy, I want to use all the energy I can enjoying my life with you. Now, whether this is your child or your partner or your friends, so if you can help me do XYZ things, then I can do ABC things. And sitting down, especially if you're married or, you're living with someone, to let them know what you can and can't do and find out what your expectations are for each other. Because if you don't, both of you are going to end up very frustrated.
Right. And then that builds into resentment, and then you take it out on each other, and then you're feeling even more alone.
Exactly. And maybe they don't understand. Maybe you're not good in the morning. Like I'm not good in the morning. And so my husband is a morning person. And so over the last couple of years, we've gotten to the point where he gets up on the weekends. He gets up at 5. He has his time. He makes the kids breakfast, and he doesn't come and get me until 10, which seems crazy because he's in charge of everything. And I felt so guilty for a really long time.
Sure.
But we've figured out that if he does that, the rest of the day, we can enjoy each other. Because if I get up early, then I'm back in bed for 4 hours taking a really long nap because my body is exhausted. So,
Right.
in things that at first, if you say, well, babe, from now on, I'm sleeping until 10 every Saturday and Sunday without any explanation or what you're going to do to compensate for that is probably not going to be taken well. So explain it, if you explain it and ask them, I only have so much energy. What is important for you for me to do? That's a really important thing because
that's a great way to phrase that.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that I thought were important for me to do for my husband were not the things he needed. And so I was burning all my energy, and then I wasn't doing the things he really needed from me. So now it's so much better. So it's an uncomfortable conversation sometimes. There may be some tears as you all work it out, but it's going to be okay as long as you talk. So that's how I would deal with that.
I love that. I mean, what I'm really hearing from you is talk about it. Don't hide from it. Don't make this the elephant in the room. Talk about what you need, what they need. Accept that this is a whole family experience and that everybody needs something different. And then you can optimize for what everybody needs. And that means your life is going to look different than you had originally anticipated, but it already is different because you've got this chronic illness. So now it's time to accept it and mold the life and create the life that's going to work for you and your family, no matter what it looks like from the outside.
Exactly.
I love that. We have a lot of people who are listening in who also don't have chronic illnesses on their own, but know somebody who is a parent with chronic illnesses. What do you wish people knew about parenting with a chronic illness, and how can they help those people who are outside of the family? What do you wish they knew and how they could help?
Well, there's typically two kinds of people with chronic illness. Some of them will tell you about it all the time, and you'll know more than you want to know, but that is actually the rare person. Most people with the women that I know, almost all of them, hide it. And so your friend may say, I have
guilty as charged.
Yeah, I have MS, but I'm fine. And every time you see them, they've got makeup on or their hair's done and they're running around and you think, wow, well, their MS might not be really bad. But what you don't know, because I do the same thing, people that don't really know me can't believe that I have muscular dystrophy because I can go out for a couple hours a day, look healthy. If I don't have my cane or my walker with me, because some days I don't need those things, then I look fine and people assume I'm fine. And you know what I say? I say I'm fine. Right. And so what I wish, my biggest thing is to have an exchange. So I've got a neighbor who's healthy. She has some pain issues too. But what we do is we trade dinners. So one night a week, I make 2 dinners and I share with her. And one night a week, she makes 2 dinners and she shares with me.
What a lovely idea. So nice. Oh my goodness.
Because I know one night a week, I don't have to cook and my family's still having a good dinner. And sometime she'll take my children to sleep over one night a month and I'll take her daughter to sleep over one night a month. So be willing to exchange with them because a lot of us, we don't want to be a charity case, right? We don't want you to just do all these things while we sit and suck it up. We want to do something back too. Exactly. Or maybe if you're going to the park, take my kids and run my kids around at the park because I can't, but then I can have your kids over in the evening. So you and your husband can go out on a date and you still get that break. So I'm doing something back. It's just in a different way. But
oh my gosh, just hearing you say that is like feeling a breath of fresh air. It is. I'm so glad you said this. And those of you that are listening, I hope this hits home. Please remember that people with chronic illnesses, parents with chronic illnesses, they want to help too. They want to be involved. It's about how can we make it happen given the circumstances? But there are so many ways to get creative about this. I so love this. I want to shout this from the rooftop. Thank you for saying this, Jen.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks. It's made a huge difference in my life. And I mean, the one thing that I've always wanted help with is people taking my kids and letting them do things. That's my biggest thing. Sure. But I'm more than willing to take someone else's kids on a good day and payback for that. It's not a problem. But definitely, if you ask somebody, this is the other thing, what can I do to help you? They will say nothing. Don't worry about it.
They will say nothing. Yes. I'm fine. I'm okay. Thank you for offering.
Exactly. So you don't say that. You say, Friday, we're going to the movies and I want to take your kids. Or tomorrow I'm going to the park and I want to take your kids. Or I'm going to bring dinner tomorrow. Next time you make a big batch, let me know. Just say what you are going to do. And if you do say you're going to do something, please do it. Because a lot of us have had people say they're doing things and then we sit and wait. And we don't want to call you and remind you because we feel guilty.
Right.
So...
oh my gosh. Everybody in the world needs to be listening to this episode right now. This is so good.
So I think it's important for people to know because
it's hard to know. Yeah.
1 in 3 adults in the US has some sort of chronic illness, which I think is ridiculously high. But so, and a lot of them aren't things that are keeping you on the couch, right? But some of them are. And statistically, several people, you might not even know that they're sick, but they have something that keeps them down sometimes. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I love this. Oh my goodness. When I talked to Jen before we recorded this, I wanted to know what her biggest message was. And she has the best one, which is having a diagnosis doesn't mean that life has to stop being fun and enjoyable. There are hundreds of things to do to enjoy our lives and spend time with our children, no matter how we're feeling. And that is everything that we're talking about. It's okay to feel down. It's okay to have a hard day. It's okay to wish this was completely different. It's okay for your family to feel that way too. But your chronic illness does not have to define your parenting journey. It's just coloring it in a different way than you expected, but you can still have fun with the family that you've created. I love how empowering your message is, Jen. I love the work that you're doing. I would love to know, as a final question, what are your words of hope for women who are listening to this episode right now who are parenting with a chronic illness?
No matter where you are and no matter what's happening with your health, you still have this amazing child that you brought into this world. And as long as you love them and do everything you can for them, it's going to be okay. So your parenting may look different than you imagined before you got pregnant or when you were pregnant, but it's okay. And your child is with you because they were meant to be with you. That's why they're your child. And it's all going to work out. It just might look a little different than you thought it was going to.
I'm wavering between goosebumps and tears. This is beautiful. Jen, thank you so much for being here and for the work that you do and for advocating and supporting people who are parenting with a chronic illness and for all the empathy that you bring and the empowerment that you bring to the world for people like us. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Where can people find you if they want to know more about you and how you help and all that good stuff?
So I had a blog called Chronically Positive Mom because I'm trying to be positive, and I've written a book called The Sick Mom's Guide, and I was running all different things, but we've compiled it all into one source. So if you go to Jen Hardy, JenHardy.net, you can find out everything about me and what I'm doing and where I'm speaking and the book. And I've got a podcast for moms with chronic illness, and everything is all right there. And there's a lot of resources there if you're looking for things to do or you're looking for ways to keep the house up when you don't feel good, any of those kind of things. And I'll also have something, JenHardy.net/delivering miracles. That'll be 10 ways to keep your kids busy when you can't get off the couch.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you for being here. I'm such a fan of you and what you do. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm your fan too. So I love that we get to work together. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. I want to share this episode. I want the entire world to listen to this episode. I really do. Because the things that Jen said, they were like truth bombs all over the place. And if I had to summarize it into one kind of umbrella term, it's empowerment. And that's something that's so missing when we have a chronic illness, especially when we're parenting with a chronic illness or 5 or whatever it is you're going through. There's so much guilt. There's so much grief. There's so much loss. There's so much anger. And it's all totally legitimate and fine and okay to feel. But Jen is that voice that's saying it doesn't have to be like this forever. It doesn't have to be like this even for another day. You can do something about it. You can change it so that you can live the life that you want no matter what the symptoms are. It's not going to look the way you thought it would look. And allow yourself to mourn that loss and then look around and say, what can I do? What do I want to do? How do I want to spend however much energy I have or pain-free moments I have? How do I want to spend them? It's a fantastic way to filter out your life so you keep in everything that matters and everything else falls away. Everything else falls away. As she said so beautifully, having a diagnosis does not mean that life has to stop being fun and enjoyable. There are hundreds of things to do that you can do right now to enjoy your life and spend time with your children, no matter how you're feeling. This is a message I just want everybody to know, whether you're living with a chronic illness or you're supporting someone with a chronic illness. So much empowerment. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And if you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, clearly, I'm so loving it. I would love it if you can head over to iTunes, Apple Podcasts by iTunes, and leave a review so more women who are having a challenging time after everything they've already been through and are having a challenging time parenting can tune into Delivering Miracles for inspiration and tips and hope that everything will be okay. Also, I would love to stay in touch. So follow me on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook. I'm all over the place at Parijat Desh. That's Parijatdesh. It sucks to have a chronic illness when you're parenting. It sucks a lot. But the thing I'm taking away from today that I hope you are too, it doesn't mean that you can't live the life that you love. That is still absolutely possible. And as long as that's possible, joy is yours. Take it one day, one step at a time. You can do this.